Picture a battered car in a frozen parking lot, where Maya clutches her newborn, praying just to survive one more night. Then comes attorney Jasmine Crockett, going head-to-head with a system designed to crush women like her. The heartbreak, unbearable. The comeback, unimaginable. But what exactly happened that turned Maya's entire life around in a way no one ever thought possible? Stay with us. This is a story worth every second of your time. The courthouse doors had slammed shut behind her, but the fight still echoed in Jasmine Crockett's bones. She had just spent 12 relentless hours in court, tearing apart a landlord's thin veil of legal justifications for evicting a mother of three during winter. Her voice had cracked on the final argument, her jaw tight from clenching against the rising fury. Justice wasn't just a job for her, it was war, and tonight she had walked off that battlefield bruised but unbroken. Still in her tailored navy blazer, heels dusty from the courtroom steps, she drove on autopilot through the near-deserted streets of Dallas, searching for something to ground her. She didn't know where she was headed until she spotted the soft glow of a supermarket sign and pulled in. Maybe she needed a tea, or silence, or something stronger. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a scattering of abandoned carts and trash dancing in the breeze. As she stepped out, slamming the door behind her, the cold slapped her cheeks. Then, it happened. A sound cut through the quiet like a razor, faint, wavering, a baby's cry, thin, tired, and heart-stopping. Jasmine froze. She turned her head like a predator catching movement in the brush. No one else was there, just rows of empty vehicles, shadows, and that one sound, soft but raw, desperate. Her pulse quickened. She followed it, her footsteps cautious but steady, heels pressing into the cracked asphalt. The cry came again, closer now, somewhere to her left. Then she saw it, an old, rust-bitten Ford Taurus parked deep in the corner, where the overhead lights didn't quite reach. The windows were fogged over, a damp shirt draped across one of them, and inside the silhouette of a woman slumped in the driver's seat, a small bundle cradled in her arms. Jasmine crept closer, heartbeat pounding. The baby was wrapped in a mishmash of worn-out blankets, one clearly made from an old flannel shirt, another from a shredded towel. The woman, young, early 20s maybe, had her knees pulled up, one hand around the child, the other gripping the steering wheel like it was all she had left. The baby cried again, quiet, hoarse, like it had cried too many times and learned it didn't help. Jasmine's throat tightened. The scene wasn't just tragic, it was wrong. In a city where luxury condos stood half vacant, where courtroom justice was bartered like poker chips, this was happening. A mother sleeping in her car with her newborn while the world kept walking. She stood there frozen, staring at the fogged-up window, her breath caught halfway between rage and heartbreak. The cry had stopped, but the silence that followed was louder. Jasmine's hands curled into fists by her sides, the cold biting into her knuckles. And then it hit her, like a bullet from the past. A flash, a sound, the smell of damp carpet and rust. A flickering street lamp outside an old Chevy Cavalier. She was 9 years old again, sitting in the back seat beside her mother, legs tucked under a threadbare coat, pretending to be asleep while her mother whispered apologies into the darkness. "We'll be okay, baby. Just one more night." But one night became weeks, then months. Jasmine remembered the shame of brushing her teeth in gas station bathrooms, the fear of cops tapping on the window with flashlights, the heat in the summer, the ice in the winter, and the feeling that the world had erased them, alive but invisible. That memory struck her harder than any courtroom verdict ever had. She remembered how it felt to be on the edge of survival, how hunger made your stomach fold into itself, how humiliation could carve itself into your bones deeper than any bruise. She remembered the look her mother wore every night, a perfect blend of strength and desperation, like she was holding back the ocean with nothing but her bare hands. And now in front of her was a mirror of that same battle. A young woman no older than Jasmine's own mother had been back then, clutching her baby as if love alone could keep the cold out. Jasmine's eyes burned, not from the wind, but from the injustice of it all. Nothing had changed. Decades later, same damn story, different faces, different cars, but the same silence from a system that claimed to care. And yet here she was, no longer that scared little girl in the back seat, but a woman who had fought her way out, from sleeping in shelters to standing tall in courtrooms, from being overlooked to becoming one of the most respected voices in law. She had beaten the odds. She had survived. But tonight, all of that meant nothing if she walked away. Not when a young mother sat freezing in a car, clutching her baby like it was the only thing keeping her alive. Not when that child cried the same quiet, forgotten cry she herself once cried. Jasmine knew too well what it meant to be ignored, and she wasn't going to let that happen to someone else. Not while she still had breath in her body. Not tonight. She took one step closer, then another. Every move was slow, careful, like she was approaching someone who had been hurt too many times. Jasmine kept her voice soft, steady, calm. "I'm not a cop. I'm not here to take anything from you." Now close enough to see clearly, she looked through the fogged window and saw the woman's face. Young, early 20s maybe, but her eyes were tired and sunken, like she hadn't truly rested in days, or months, the kind of eyes that carried more pain than any age should. The woman's head jerked up, startled. She pulled her baby tighter and reached with her free hand. Click. She locked the door. Jasmine stopped moving, lifted her hands to show she meant no harm. "It's okay," she said gently. "I just wanted to check on you. I heard the baby crying." But the fear on the woman's face didn't go away. It got sharper, more guarded. It wasn't just fear of strangers. It was fear of being noticed. Then the woman finally spoke. Her voice was dry and shaky, but loud enough to hear through the glass. "Please, just go." There was no anger in it, only panic. "I don't need anything. We're fine." But they clearly weren't fine. The baby wasn't even crying anymore, just letting out soft, strained whimpers. The woman's voice came again, more desperate now. "You people always say you're helping, and then you call someone, and they take him. They take him from me." She pulled the baby closer, holding him like the world was trying to steal him away. Jasmine's heart sank. She understood. This wasn't just about pride. This was about survival, about holding on to the only thing that still mattered when everything else had been taken away. Jasmine took a slow step back, not leaving, just giving her space. "I promise I'm not here to report anything," she said calmly. "I'm not with the government. I've seen what happens when people say they're helping and then make things worse." Her voice was steady, but her chest tightened as she spoke. "That's not who I am." Maya didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on Jasmine, narrowed with suspicion, flickering with exhaustion. That was enough. Jasmine knew the look too well. One wrong word, one false step, and the fragile moment between them would shatter like glass. This wasn't just a scared woman in a car. This was someone who'd been cornered too many times by people who called it help, but came with clipboards, questions, and consequences. Jasmine inhaled slowly, grounding herself. She didn't come here to save anyone. She came because she couldn't forget what it felt like to have nothing and still be expected to trust strangers. So she did the one thing Maya wouldn't expect. She backed off, quietly, gently, not defeated, just different. Jasmine turned and walked back to her car with purpose, not glancing over her shoulder because trust didn't grow under a spotlight. It grew in shadows when no one was watching. At the trunk of her car, she opened it with a soft click, the hinge creaking slightly in the night air. Inside was her emergency stash, something she kept not for herself, but because the world had taught her that desperation didn't make appointments. She reached in and pulled out a canvas grocery bag. No logos, no slogans, just plain beige, slightly worn at the seams. One by one, she placed the items inside with deliberate care. A folded fleece blanket, still soft and warm, a sealed container of infant formula, 2 clean baby bottles wrapped in a paper towel, a handful of protein bars, a bottle of spring water. Then she paused, digging into the side pocket. Her fingers brushed against something knitted. She pulled it out, a tiny sky blue beanie, still new, still with the tag. It had been meant as a gift for a colleague's baby boy. That colleague never showed up to the shower. Jasmine had kept it ever since. Tonight, it had found its purpose. She closed the trunk gently, the night settling heavy around her like a second coat. Her heels tapped softly as she crossed the lot again, bag in hand. She stopped several feet away from Maya's car. Not too close, not threatening. The woman hadn't moved, but she was watching. Jasmine knelt down slowly, knees pressing into the cold concrete, and set the bag just under the front bumper, directly where Maya could see it. The overhead light flickered, casting shadows across the scene like a stage in pause. Jasmine didn't speak, didn't wave, just placed the bag with both hands as if offering it to the ground itself. She stood, brushed her knees off, and took one long look through the fogged-up window. The baby stirred, a soft noise escaping the bundle of fabric in Maya's arms. Then Jasmine turned, walked back toward her car, her spine straight, her pace calm. Every fiber of her wanted to stay, to knock again, to say, "You don't have to live like this." But she knew better, knew that real help starts with leaving space, not taking control. At her car door, she stopped, exhaled into her hands for warmth, and slid inside. She didn't drive off immediately. She sat behind the wheel, watching in her mirror. Maya didn't reach for the bag, not yet. That was okay. It wasn't about the blanket or the food. It was about the message they carried. I see you. I respect you. I won't force you. But I am here. And sometimes that was how hope began. Not with noise, not with force, but with silence, choice, and a bag left in the cold. Jasmine returned the next morning, long before the sun climbed over the skyline. The streets were still bathed in blue shadow, and the city hadn't quite shaken off the silence of night. As she pulled into the lot, her eyes immediately scanned the far corner, and there it was, the car, the same dented Ford Taurus, unmoved, blanketed in morning frost. A sharp breath escaped her lips. They hadn't left, which meant Maya had nowhere else to go. No shelter opened its doors, no relative came through, no miracle arrived. Jasmine parked a short distance away, her heartbeat steady but heavy. She reached for the second care package she'd prepared with the same intentional hands as the first. A thermos of warm chamomile tea, clean socks, more baby formula, 2 protein bars, and a small Ziploc bag of wipes. But this time, she didn't feel like she was delivering supplies. She felt like she was returning to the front lines of a war too many people pretend doesn't exist. The air was colder than the night before. The frost beneath her boots cracked with each step, like the ground itself was warning her to tread lightly. But Jasmine moved with certainty. This wasn't pity, it was purpose. As she approached, she noticed something different. Maya was already awake, sitting up, watching. No sudden movements, no panic, just stillness. Her baby was nestled beneath her coat again, only the top of his hat visible. Jasmine slowed her pace and didn't go directly to the door. She stopped a few feet away and lowered herself into a crouch, placing the bag beside the front wheel, right where Maya could reach it without stepping out. Then she stood, brushed off her hands, and finally looked up. Maya opened the car door, slowly, cautiously. The hinges groaned in protest, but she stepped out, one arm cradling her son, the other hovering like a brake, ready to slam shut if the situation changed. Her eyes didn't burn with anger this time. They carried something else now, fatigue, and maybe curiosity. She glanced down at the bag, then at Jasmine. "You came back," she said, voice hoarse. Jasmine nodded. "Of course." Maya's hand hovered above the bag, unsure if it was a trap or a gesture she didn't know how to accept. Then she picked it up, opened the zipper, and pulled out the thermos. She sniffed it, cautiously at first, then took a sip. Her lips pressed together as the warmth hit her chest. She swallowed, then quietly, almost like she didn't mean to say it, "Thanks." The word floated in the cold air and landed like a firework in Jasmine's chest. Not because it meant she was welcome, but because it meant she was seen. Jasmine didn't smile. She didn't make it about her. She just said, "You're welcome." A few seconds passed, heavy and charged. Then Maya said, "I thought you were with CPS, or the police." Jasmine shook her head, slow and firm. "No, I'm not here to take anything. I'm a lawyer, civil rights, housing justice. I fight for people the system leaves behind. Maya looked skeptical. She shifted her baby's weight from one arm to the other, eyes scanning Jasmine's face for any sign of a lie. But what she saw was stillness. No hidden agenda. No badge. Just a woman who came back. Twice. Jasmine reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a simple business card. No logo. No big title. Just her name and number. She didn't hold it out like an offer. She placed it on the windshield gently. I'm not here to push you into anything. You don't owe me. But if you ever want to talk, really talk, I'll listen. And if you need more than food, I might be able to help. Maya didn't take the card. Not yet. But she didn't throw it away either. She looked at it like it was a rope hanging down from a high cliff. Too far to reach. Too heavy to trust. Still, she said nothing more. And that silence wasn't rejection. It was calculation, fear, and the distant possibility of hope. Jasmine nodded once more, backing away slowly. I'll check in tomorrow, she said. If you're here, I'll leave something. If not, I'll assume you found someplace safer. Maya didn't answer, but just as Jasmine turned, a soft voice broke the stillness behind her. His name's Liam, Maya said. Jasmine stopped, turned back. Your son? Maya nodded. He's 5 months. He likes warm milk and hates the wind. There was no smile, just fact. But it was the first time Maya offered anything of herself. It was the first door open, even if only a crack. Jasmine felt a sharp ache rise in her chest, not of pity, of purpose. She walked back to her car, the cold wind tugging at her coat, but she didn't rush. Because this moment, this small exchange in a concrete lot, was a turning point. And turning points, Jasmine knew, were the beginning of revolutions. Trust was delicate, and Jasmine knew it. When Maya said Liam's name, it wasn't just information. It was a risk, a test, a small surrender. Jasmine promised herself she'd earn that trust. What she didn't know was that, within hours, the system would try to destroy it. The call came in just after 1 p.m. Jasmine had just finished a tense deposition when her phone lit up, the name on the screen making her gut twist. Detective Barnes, an old colleague, one of the few officers she still trusted. She answered before the first ring finished. Jas, he said, voice low. There's a woman here, early 20s, carrying an infant. She's saying she knows you. Jasmine's grip tightened around the phone. What's going on? She asked, already standing, already reaching for her bag. Barnes sighed. Shoplifting, formula and wipes. Supermarket over on Carson. Jasmine was already moving toward the door. Is it Maya? She asked. Silence. Then, yeah, that's the name she gave. Her knuckles went white on the steering wheel as she cut through traffic, barely hearing the horns blaring at her. Her mind raced, not just with fury, but with fear. How fast the world turns. How fast trust, already hanging by a thread, can be severed. One bad call, one wrong assumption, and it wasn't just Maya at risk, it was Liam. CPS involvement, arrest records, the loss of custody. Jasmine had fought too many cases like this to believe the system would give Maya the benefit of the doubt. Poor, black, alone, accused. That was all they needed. That's all they saw. When she arrived, she didn't park. She slammed her car into a red zone, threw her badge at the front desk, and demanded access. Inside the holding area, Maya sat on a hard plastic bench, head down, arms around Liam like she was bracing for impact. The baby was crying, soft and confused, his face red with hunger and fear. Maya didn't look up when the door opened. She couldn't. She couldn't bear to see the look in Jasmine's eyes. Pity, disappointment, judgment. But Jasmine didn't offer any of that. She walked in like a soldier entering enemy territory. Calm, controlled, cold fire behind the eyes. I didn't steal, Maya said before Jasmine could speak. I swear, the formula, it was expired. From the bag. I was just trying to exchange it, but I didn't know where to go. I waited at the front, but no one came. I panicked. Her words tumbled out, cracked and breathless. I didn't take anything. I didn't leave the store. They grabbed me when I was trying to leave to go find Liam's pacifier. I didn't even cross the damn exit line. She clutched her son tighter. Then they said they were calling CPS. They said I was endangering my child. Her voice broke on that last word, and Jasmine felt something inside her snap. She turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, straight to the security office at the grocery store. The manager, a man in his 40s with a smug smirk and coffee breath, barely looked up when she entered. "Can I help you?" he asked. Jasmine dropped her credentials on the desk like a gavel. "You can start by pulling the surveillance footage from this morning, and then you can explain to me how a woman standing at your front desk with an open can of baby formula and zero intent to steal somehow ends up in handcuffs." He blinked. She looked nervous, kept shifting around, and she didn't have a receipt. Jasmine's voice turned lethal. "She's homeless. Do you think she's printing receipts in her back seat?" The footage was damning, but not for Maya. It showed her standing near customer service, cradling the formula, waiting. Her body language was tense, yes, but not guilty. She paced, looked around, even walked to the side aisle looking for someone to speak to. No one came. After almost 10 minutes, she set the can down, adjusted Liam's blanket, and headed toward the exit. That's when a security guard intercepted her, like she was a felon in the middle of a heist. Jasmine turned to the room full of store staff. "That's your evidence. That's what justified calling the police?" She didn't even leave with it. The manager raised his hands. "We have policies, and she didn't follow proper return procedure." Jasmine leaned in, her voice ice. "Your policy just traumatized a mother and her infant. Your policy nearly sent a baby into the foster system." Back at the precinct, it took another 45 minutes to reverse the damage. Charges dismissed. CPS called off. But there was no apology, no acknowledgement, just silence. Maya was released with a form in her hand and her baby still crying. She didn't speak on the way out. She didn't have to. Her silence screamed. Jasmine opened the passenger door and Maya slid in, holding Liam like a shield between her and the world. When the car finally began to move, Maya whispered, "I didn't want to bother you." I didn't know what else to do. Jasmine's jaw was tight. "You shouldn't have to know. You shouldn't have to be perfect just to be treated like a human being." The car ride was quiet. Jasmine didn't offer comfort. She offered truth. "They didn't see you," she said. "Not really. They saw what they wanted to see, a tired woman with a baby, and that was enough for them to treat you like a criminal." Maya looked out the window, her voice barely audible. "I tried to do it right. I was careful. I waited. I didn't take anything." Jasmine nodded, eyes forward. "And still, it wasn't enough. That's how it works. It's not about what you did. It's about who they think you are." The car fell silent again, but something was different this time. The tears came in silence. No sobbing, no wailing, just raw grief shaking through Maya's body like an aftershock. Jasmine didn't interrupt. She didn't comfort with empty words. She waited. Let the weight settle. And when the silence stretched long enough to make the walls feel too close, Maya spoke. Not because she wanted to, but because it hurt more to hold it in. "I wasn't always like this," Maya said, voice hollow, eyes fixed on the small crib where Liam slept peacefully for the first time in days. 3 years ago, I had a home, a job. I was married." She swallowed hard, fingers twitching nervously in her lap. "He was charming, said all the right things. I didn't know he was lying to everyone, me, the bank, even his own family. He was running a fake investment scheme, had credit cards I didn't know about. Loans in my name." Her eyes narrowed, filled with a pain that had long since burned through disbelief. "By the time the cops came for him, I was the one holding the paperwork. My name was on everything." Jasmine sat quietly across from her, the weight of Maya's words crashing over her like surf. "He disappeared, just gone, took the last of our money and vanished." She paused, shoulders rising and falling with deep, bitter breaths. "I lost the apartment 2 months later. Couldn't pay the rent, couldn't prove anything. I had to sign a court document I didn't understand just to stop them from garnishing my wages. Turns out that gave them the right to freeze my bank account. Everything I had, gone overnight." Her voice cracked on the last word, but she didn't stop. "I ended up on a friend's couch, then a shelter, then in my car. And that's where I had Liam." She looked up, finally meeting Jasmine's eyes. "I gave birth in the back seat of a sedan I don't even own anymore. I was screaming in a parking lot behind a closed gas station, trying to dial 911 with 1 bar of service. Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. No one came until morning. Her tone shifted, sharper now, edged with rage. And then they told me I wasn't a fit mother, that because I didn't have a permanent address, I might not be safe, that if I didn't find a residence, they'd start paperwork to reassign custody. She spat the phrase like venom. Reassign, like he was some lost package. She shook her head, lips tight. They don't see the nights I don't sleep so he can. They don't see the way I ration food, the way I turn down help because I'm afraid they'll use it against me. Jasmine leaned forward slightly, the air between them thick with the weight of too many unspoken injustices. And then, Maya whispered, almost to herself, the final nail. Jasmine waited. I used to be a nurse, Maya said. Pediatrics, licensed, trained, respected. I loved my job. I was good at it. But when all this happened, when my credit crashed, when the arrest warrant for him got tied to me, they flagged my record, put a hold on my license. I wasn't convicted of anything, but they said they needed time to investigate. That was 2 years ago. I've been in limbo ever since. Can't work, can't reapply, can't even finish my CE credits without active standing. She laughed bitterly, a sharp, broken sound. So now I sit outside hospitals I used to work in, hoping someone drops $1 in the stroller. Jasmine didn't speak, couldn't. Her throat was tight. Her chest ached with a familiar fury, the kind reserved not for the mistakes people make, but for the systems that punish them for surviving. Maya wiped her eyes with the edge of her sleeve, already pulling herself back together, already putting the armor back on. Every time I start to fix one thing, another thing collapses. It's like playing Jenga with broken hands. She looked up, eyes hard again. You wanted to know why I didn't trust anyone? That's why. Because the last time I let someone help me, I lost everything. Jasmine nodded once, slow, respectful, and in that quiet space, without promises or platitudes, something settled between them. Not forgiveness, not hope, but understanding. And sometimes that was more powerful than either. Jasmine had heard enough. Maya's story wasn't a rare case. It was a blueprint for how the system fails quietly, consistently, and without apology. Jasmine had seen it destroy too many women like Maya, resilient, resourceful, but alone. This time she wasn't letting it end that way. This time, the system would answer to her. She started with the nursing board, not an email, a call. Jasmine never wasted time hiding behind polite correspondence when something needed to be done yesterday. The voice on the other end was professional, measured, but Jasmine heard it, the hesitation, the tightening of tone when she said Maya's name. Her license was flagged during a financial investigation tied to her ex-husband, the representative explained. Technically, she wasn't accused of wrongdoing, but her application was frozen as a precaution. Jasmine's fingers gripped the edge of her desk. A precaution that's lasted how long? She asked coolly. 18 months? She didn't wait for confirmation. So you held her livelihood hostage based on proximity to a man who vanished. You buried her under red tape while she slept in her car. Fix it, the rep stammered. We can begin a review. Jasmine cut in. Begin nothing. Reopen. Expedited. I'll have a legal packet on your desk before lunch. If I don't see movement in 48 hours, I'm taking this public. She hung up. Then she sent the packet. Not a standard appeal, but a 28-page legal bullet, complete with supporting affidavits, screenshots of Maya's record, and a sharp opening letter that read like a warning shot. If silence is your official response, be advised. I am not a quiet opponent. She CC'd the Regional Medical Oversight Board, 3 journalists, and a state representative who owed her a favor from a decade-old campaign scandal she had once quietly buried. Jasmine didn't play fair. She played to win. Then came the next fire, housing. The shelter was a stopgap, not a solution. Liam needed a stable sleep schedule. Maya needed a lock on her door and a bathroom that didn't come with a time limit. Jasmine called New Foundation's Transitional Living, a partner org she'd sued twice and funded once. That earned her a permanent backdoor line to the executive director. I need a room. Solo occupancy, child safe, Kitchen access. Now. The director hesitated. Jasmine, we've got a waiting list of bump someone. Her tone was stone. Push them to short-term motel placement. I'll write the check. Get Maya in. Today. The woman sighed. You really don't ask. You order. Jasmine didn't apologize. Not when someone's sleeping in a car. 3 hours later, Maya had a key to room 207. She stood in the doorway like she'd accidentally walked onto the set of a dream. There was no marble, no luxury, but there was clean tile, a working heater, a kitchenette, and a portable crib waiting by the window. Jasmine placed the key in her hand without ceremony. No one's kicking you out of this one, and it's paid for. Maya stared at her. For how long? Jasmine's voice didn't waver. As long as it takes. But Jasmine knew none of it would matter without income. That night she worked until 2 a.m., rewriting Maya's resume. She took every moment of Maya's experience, every missed shift, every night she spent tending to Liam while unemployed, and reframed it as what it truly was: resilience, multitasking, crisis management under pressure. When she was done, the page didn't read like a survivor's confession. It read like the foundation of a comeback. She sent the resume to Dr. Lynn, director of West Park Pediatric Clinic, a woman who owed Jasmine after she defended her hospital from a discrimination case and refused to accept payment. Jasmine wrote, "She's not just qualified, she's battle-tested. Give her an interview. If she chokes, that's on her, but give her the chance." Lynn replied an hour later, "Fine, tomorrow, 10 a.m., informal, one parent to another." But Jasmine wasn't finished. Her last move was the loudest one. At sunrise, she drafted a message. Short, relentless. She sent it through her private network of activists, attorneys, and high-level contacts. Subject, her name is Maya. Body, Maya Thompson is a registered pediatric nurse. She lost her license without being charged. She lost her home because her husband lied. She nearly lost her child because a store manager got nervous. We are rebuilding what the system broke. If you can help, now is the time. If you can't, forward this to someone who can. She blind copied 122 names. By noon, she had 5 replies offering legal review, childcare stipends, and mental health support. One donor pledged $5,000 to cover 6 months of transitional housing. A tech recruiter offered to personally coach Maya through interview prep. A nonprofit mailed Liam a week's worth of diapers, formula, and clothing. Brand new. One message from a retired judge Jasmine once embarrassed in court simply said, "For the first time in a while, I'm glad you never backed down." Maya watched it all unfold with silent disbelief. "I don't understand," she told Jasmine one night as they sorted groceries in her new kitchen. "I was invisible for so long. Now it's like, people care?" Jasmine didn't sugarcoat. "They always cared. They just didn't see you. My job is to make you impossible to ignore." Maya nodded slowly. "So what now?" Jasmine looked her dead in the eye. "Now you get your life back. And when you're ready, you teach them never to take it again." When Jasmine looked Maya in the eye and said, "Now you get your life back," Maya wanted to believe her. But belief, for someone like her, wasn't a flick of a switch. It was built slowly, layer by layer, through actions, not words. Still, that morning, for the first time in a very long time, Maya woke up and didn't feel like she was drowning. She was still in the ocean, but she had a raft, and she had a name on her calendar for 10 a.m. sharp: Dr. Lynn, West Park Community Clinic. She stood in front of the clinic's double glass doors, breath fogging in the early morning air, palms sweating despite the cool breeze. She wore secondhand scrubs Jasmine had picked out, a simple blue set that still smelled faintly of starch. Her resume was folded inside a manila envelope. Her hands trembled, but her spine stayed straight. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed softly. Nurses moved with purpose. Reception buzzed with quiet chatter. The world was moving, fast, chaotic, and Maya was about to step back into it after years of being locked out. She took one last look at Liam, asleep in his stroller just outside the main desk. Then she walked in. Dr. Lynn didn't greet her with a handshake. She stood, smiled warmly, and said, "Let's talk like mothers." That was the first crack in Maya's armor. They sat in a small office just past triage, surrounded by patient charts and a coffee-stained desk. "Why nursing?" Dr. Lin asked. Maya swallowed. "Because when I was 12, a nurse stayed with my mom through chemo, even after her shift ended. She sat in that chair for 4 extra hours just to hold my mom's hand. I never forgot that." Lin nodded. "What happened?" Maya didn't flinch. "My license got flagged. My husband disappeared with debt in my name. I couldn't fight the system and raise my son. I tried. I lost. But I'm still standing." The silence after that sentence wasn't awkward. It was earned. 2 weeks later, Maya started work as a pediatric intake assistant. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't her old title. But it was real. She had a name tag again, a locker, a lunch break, a schedule. She walked the halls like someone still learning to breathe on land. But every day, her steps grew more certain. At first, she flinched every time someone in authority called her name. She expected judgment, accusation, that creeping doubt the world had taught her to live with. But instead, she got normalcy, respect. A doctor called her nurse. A child hugged her. A mother thanked her for being gentle. Those moments, small as they were, stitched her back together. She still lived at the transitional unit, but not for long. On her second paycheck, she applied for a low-income housing voucher. On her third, she got approved. Jasmine helped co-sign the lease on a small one-bedroom apartment just a block from the clinic. It wasn't much. Peeling paint, no dishwasher, a heater that wheezed like an old man. But it was hers. The day she signed the lease, she let herself cry. Not because she had a place to live, but because she finally didn't have to lie when someone asked for her address. The first night in her new apartment, Maya laid Liam on a mattress on the floor and watched him sleep. She didn't move, didn't blink, just listened. No sirens outside, no cold wind leaking through cracked windows, no sound of car engines starting nearby. Just quiet, safety. And then, the next morning, she hung a drawing on the fridge, a crooked rainbow with the words "Mommy's House" scrawled in crayon. She had never felt richer, but there was still one battle left, the one she feared most. CPS had never officially taken Liam from her, but they had hovered like a threat over every decision, every move. One wrong step, one bad report, and she could lose him forever. Now, with steady work, housing, and legal advocacy, Jasmine helped her file a petition to officially reinstate full, undisputed legal custody. The hearing was quiet. The judge was skeptical at first. "Ms. Thompson," he said, "you've been flagged in the system more than once. Why should I trust that this change is permanent?" Maya stood, heart pounding, voice clear. "Because I'm not asking for your trust. I'm showing you what I've already done. I didn't wait for your approval. I fixed it anyway." The judge glanced at Jasmine, then at the stack of supporting documents. Pay stubs, housing agreements, her updated license. After a long pause, he nodded. "Custody reinstated. Full rights. Ms. Thompson, good luck." Maya stepped out of that courthouse with Liam in her arms and sunlight on her face. Jasmine stood at the bottom of the courthouse steps, arms crossed, smiling. Maya didn't say a word. She didn't need to. They had fought this war side by side, and today they had won. But Maya wasn't finished. Not even close. A month after moving in, Maya returned to the shelter, not to sleep, but to serve. She asked the director if she could offer a weekly class, something simple, something real. "I don't want to lecture," she said. "I want to tell them what no one told me. How to keep your baby warm in a car, how to apply for food assistance without a permanent address, what to say when the cops knock, how to get back up when the world steps on your neck." The shelter agreed. They gave her a spare room and a folding table. She called the class Still Standing. The first week, 2 women showed up, one with a toddler, one with a black eye. The second week, 5. By the third month, it was standing room only. Maya brought handouts, diapers, secondhand baby clothes, stories, and most of all, truth. She didn't speak like someone who had read the statistics. She spoke like someone who had survived them. And when the women listened, they didn't just hear instructions. They heard permission, permission to try again, permission to fight, permission to believe that maybe, just maybe, they weren't alone. On the 6-month anniversary of her first paycheck, Jasmine took Maya out for dinner. Nothing fancy. A little diner near the courthouse. They sat across from each other, laughing about the time Maya tried to use a blender without a lid and sprayed applesauce across the ceiling. Then after a long pause, Jasmine raised her glass of iced tea. "To Liam," she said. Maya shook her head, smiling. "To second chances," she corrected. Jasmine nodded. "No, not second chances. To the first time someone saw you clearly." They clinked glasses, and for the first time in a long time, Maya didn't just feel seen, she felt undeniable. Maya's apartment wasn't perfect. The heater still made that strange clicking sound, and she hadn't quite figured out how to fix the squeaky faucet. But as she tucked Liam into bed each night, full and warm, she no longer feared tomorrow. For the first time in years, tomorrow felt like a door, one she could walk through, head held high. What she didn't know was that, just 6 months later, she'd be standing behind a podium, looking out at a packed community center, with a microphone in one hand and her story in the other. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly, the soft hum of folding chairs scraping the tile as people filed into the small auditorium. A banner hung overhead, faded but proud. Voices of change, reclaiming dignity through community action. It wasn't a gala. There were no red carpets, no cameras, just warmth, coffee in styrofoam cups, and a room full of people who had been broken and rebuilt. Some still in the middle of it. Near the back row, dressed in a quiet gray blazer, Jasmine Crockett sat with her arms crossed, legs tucked neatly beneath the chair, watching the stage with steady eyes. She hadn't told Maya she would be here. She didn't have to. She'd shown up when it mattered. This moment was for Maya to own. On stage, Maya stood alone. No notes, no podium to hide behind. Just her, a mic, and a silence so thick you could hear the breath of every person in the room. She adjusted the mic slightly, cleared her throat, and began, not with a dramatic pause, not with practiced polish, but with raw, unvarnished truth. 6 months ago, she said, I was living in my car with a 5-month-old baby and a nursing license I wasn't allowed to use. The room didn't move, didn't blink. I wasn't a criminal, but I was treated like one. I wasn't unfit to be a mother, but I was threatened with losing my son. I wasn't lazy. I was invisible. Her voice didn't rise, but it carried like a wave. She spoke of the parking lot nights, of wrapping Liam in torn blankets while checking mirrors for patrol lights, of the job she almost got until they saw the flag on her license, of the day she tried to return expired formula and ended up in handcuffs. Do you know what it feels like, she said, to have your child cry from hunger in front of strangers who think you're the problem? A murmur rippled through the crowd. Sympathy, anger, recognition. Maya paused, looked down, then back up. And then someone saw me, she said. Her voice softened, but her posture grew taller. Not a case number, not a cautionary tale. A human, a mother, a nurse. She didn't offer me charity. She offered me a fighting chance, and I took it. In the back row, Jasmine exhaled, slowly, her fingers tightening around the chair's edge. She didn't need to hear her name. This wasn't about credit. This was about proof that the work, the fight, the fire had led to something that lasted. Maya continued, Today, I work at a community clinic. I rent an apartment. I tuck my son into his own bed. I cook dinner on my own stove. I hold a license that was once locked behind glass, and I show up for women who are where I was. Her eyes scanned the room. They landed on a young woman near the front, hoodie pulled tight, eyes wide and glassy. Maya smiled at her. Not a stage smile, a real one. If you're here tonight, still trying, still fighting, still surviving, then you haven't lost. Not yet. She closed her talk not with applause in mind, but with purpose. I was told I didn't belong anywhere, that I was too much or not enough, that people like me didn't get second chances. But I'm here, and now I make space for others. The crowd stood before the last syllable left her mouth. Not a standing ovation for show, but one born from every person in that room who knew what it meant to fall and claw their way back. Maya didn't bask in it. She just nodded, and then stepped off the stage, head high, tears in her eyes, but not the kind that fall from pain. These were earned. These were hers. Jasmine remained seated as the room swelled with chatter. She watched Maya weave through the crowd, hugging former shelter mates, shaking hands with strangers, even posing for a few hesitant selfies. Jasmine didn't move. She just watched. Her eyes didn't sparkle. They burned, with pride, with rage at how close Maya had come to being buried, and with resolve that there would always be another Maya out there, waiting to be seen. Eventually, Maya spotted her. Across the room, through the chaos, their eyes locked. And in that glance, a flood of memory passed between them. Frosted windshields, police stations, courtrooms, cheap plastic cribs, and the unspoken understanding that neither of them would have made it here alone. Maya didn't rush over. She didn't cry. She simply walked across the room, stopped in front of Jasmine, and said quietly, "You came." Jasmine stood. "Of course I did." Maya swallowed hard. "I thought about quitting. So many times. I kept waiting for the floor to collapse again." Jasmine tilted her head. "But it didn't." Maya smiled through it. "No, because you taught me how to pour concrete." They didn't hug. They didn't need to. They just stood there. Two women who had survived the system in different ways, bound not by circumstance, but by choice. Jasmine looked around at the room, still buzzing with Maya's words, and nodded once. "You didn't just take your life back," she said. "You turned it into a blueprint." Maya looked over her shoulder at the group still surrounding the stage. "Do you think they'll remember it?" Jasmine smiled. "They won't forget." Then Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a flyer. It was creased, hand-printed, and honest. At the top, in bold letters, "Still Standing, a weekly support circle for women rebuilding their lives." "Week 7 starts Monday," Maya said. "We're moving it to the church basement. Too many women for the old space." Jasmine held the flyer like it was gold. "Good. Let it overflow." As the night wound down, Maya was pulled back into the crowd. Congratulations, questions, hugs. Jasmine stepped quietly into the back hallway, out into the night air. The city buzzed beyond the community center, unaware of the revolution that had just taken place inside. Jasmine looked up at the stars, not for answers, but for silence. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another case, another mother, another fire to walk into. She didn't hesitate, but before stepping off the curb, she looked back once. Through the window, she could still see Maya, laughing, strong, radiant, not a victim, not a client, a voice, a leader, a storm that survived itself and decided to light the way for others. Jasmine smiled, then walked back into the fight. Through the window, she could still see Maya, laughing, strong, and radiant in front of the crowd. Jasmine allowed herself the briefest smile before stepping into the night air. Another call buzzing on her phone, another fight waiting. But as she walked away from that warm, crowded hall, she knew the real impact of Maya's story wouldn't end with applause. It would echo through every mother struggling in parking lots, every father trying to shield his children from the cold, every individual fighting unseen battles against a system that often sees them as numbers instead of hearts. The question that lingered in Jasmine's mind, and in anyone who witnessed Maya's transformation, was simple yet profound. Now what? Where do we go from here? The answer, as always, lay not just in the next case or the next hearing, but in the lessons gleaned from this triumph. And so in the stillness after the standing ovation, a deeper reflection emerged on human dignity, on injustice, and on the power of refusing to back down. The human heart can endure more than any statistic or policy can measure. Yet so often it's crushed by the weight of bureaucratic indifference. Every cold night Maya spent in that parking lot was a testament to how easily the system strips dignity from those who can't afford to defend themselves. But her story reminds us that survival is not the same as living. A car seat can become a makeshift crib, yet it will never be a home. The first lesson here is that people should not have to prove they are worthy of shelter or respect. Being human should be enough. When Jasmine intervened, she didn't see a homeless mother. She saw an individual robbed of safety and hope by forces beyond her control. That single shift in perspective, seeing a person's worth rather than their predicament, sparks the kind of change that policy alone cannot achieve. It's a lesson in empathy so fierce that it cuts through red tape faster than any court order. Survival may be raw and necessary, but it's also dehumanizing when it's the only option left. By stepping in to offer solutions, not judgment, Jasmine revealed how one person's refusal to walk away can ignite a chain reaction of support. And so, the simplest truth emerges. Acknowledging someone's inherent value can be the lifeline that stops them from slipping beneath the cracks altogether. Every step of Maya's journey also exposes a second hard truth. Systems are built to protect themselves first and people second. From the moment her husband vanished, leaving her with debts and a tarnished record, Maya found herself entangled in a web of bureaucratic inertia, the complexity of legal forms, the endless queues at social service offices, the suspicious glances from clerks who only saw her as a potential liability. All these roadblocks weren't accidental. They were systematic barriers designed, or at least maintained, to funnel individuals into a rigid process that rarely prioritizes compassion. Yet under Jasmine's relentless push, each of those barriers began to show cracks. Phone calls were made, emails were sent, and the entire apparatus was forced to confront its own contradictions. This relentless advocacy underscores a fundamental lesson. Real change rarely comes from waiting quietly for empathy to trickle down. It comes when someone like Jasmine wields her connections, her legal expertise, and her unwavering moral stance like a battering ram. A system that once appeared monolithic revealed its fault lines, because it had never been truly challenged by someone who refused to accept no for an answer. And so the second lesson stands clear. No matter how massive or labyrinthine, institutions bow to perseverance, especially when that perseverance is fueled by righteous anger and compassion. But behind every institution lie the prejudices and biases of the individuals who operate them. Another essential takeaway from Maya's Odyssey is how preconceived notions and stereotypes can silently dictate outcomes. The supermarket manager who called the police, the nurse licensing board that hesitated to reinstate her credentials, these weren't mindless automatons. They were people operating under the weight of assumptions about who deserves help and who doesn't. They saw Maya's exhaustion and her child's faint crying and projected guilt instead of empathy. Jasmine's intervention exposed the real injustice, that being poor, black, and a single mother automatically flagged Maya as a potential criminal. This reflection of societal bias, so deeply woven into daily interactions, reveals how easily the powerless become victims of prejudgment. Recognizing and confronting these biases is crucial, for it isn't just about fair treatment. It's about dismantling an invisible barrier that keeps entire communities trapped in cycles of poverty and suspicion. In Maya's story, calling out these biases was not an afterthought. It was a weapon Jasmine wielded at every turn to challenge complacency and indifference. Thus, the third lesson emerges: confronting ingrained prejudice is a moral imperative, not a favor, and it demands the boldness to see people as they truly are rather than as we assume them to be. Of course, none of this would have mattered if Maya herself hadn't held on to that last scrap of resilience. A key lesson is the tremendous courage it takes to keep going when the world has decided you're already defeated. From the outside, it's easy to view someone sleeping in a car as lazy or unwilling to work. But Maya's every decision was a strategic dance for survival. She rationed food, scouted safe places to park, navigated a labyrinth of condescending social agencies, and shielded her child from the cruelty of stares that labeled them both as less than human. When Jasmine offered help, Maya hesitated at first, not out of pride, but out of the raw terror that even well-intentioned interference might end with her baby taken away. It's a tragedy that the system often teaches those in need to distrust help, because help has so frequently come with strings attached. That Maya ultimately chose to trust Jasmine wasn't just a testament to Jasmine's tenacity. It was a testament to Maya's own unwavering love for her son and her will to fight a battle she knew was rigged from the start. Thus, the fourth lesson is that resilience thrives even in the darkest corners, and sometimes all it needs is one genuine lifeline to remind it how to breathe. Furthermore, the story underscores that compassion, when backed by strategy, can topple seemingly insurmountable barriers. Jasmine's approach wasn't merely about offering a shoulder to cry on. It was about leveraging every resource, connection, and legal angle to carve a path out of the maze. She didn't just sympathize, she strategized. She knew that no matter how many kind words were spoken, without action, Maya would remain trapped in a cycle of hopelessness. So she pitted the system against itself, using its own laws, regulations, and precedents to dismantle the roadblocks erected by ignorance and red tape. This duality, heart and mind, compassion and cunning, proved unstoppable. The synergy of Jasmine's legal acumen and Maya's indomitable spirit forced institutions to do what they should have done all along: serve the people they were designed to protect. This synergy is a stark reminder that empathy is not weakness. Empathy becomes a powerful tool when paired with knowledge, determination, and a refusal to accept an unjust status quo. That synergy is the fifth lesson, illuminating how transformative help must be both heartfelt and methodical if it's to break the chains that keep individuals like Maya invisible. By the time Maya stood on that stage 6 months later, her life was more than a redemption arc. It was living proof that human dignity can be resurrected. Her presence as a speaker at a community forum wasn't just symbolic, it was a direct assault on every assumption the system made about her. She was no longer silent, no longer relegated to the back corners of a parking lot. Instead, she was front and center, armed with the truth of her survival and the power of her newfound voice. The audience, many of whom recognized their own stories in her words, responded with an electricity that reverberated around the hall. For one mesmerizing moment, all those who had been called lost causes or burdens on society saw that transformation was possible. Maya's speech turned a single personal triumph into a collective rallying cry, reaffirming the core lesson: that once a person finds their footing, they can reach back to elevate others who are still stumbling in the dark. It was a reminder that the line between helplessness and hope is often drawn by empathy and timely intervention. Yet in that same hall across the crowd, Jasmine sat quietly, watching with a satisfaction that ran deeper than any applause. Her mission was never about being hailed as a savior. It was about doing what the system refused to do: see beyond the statistics and treat people like they mattered. The lesson here is that change is a relay race, not a solo performance. Jasmine picked up the baton when Maya needed it most and ran with every ounce of her legal prowess, but ultimately handed that baton back to Maya so she could run her own race. This underscores that true empowerment means helping people stand on their own feet, rather than making them dependent on perpetual rescue. Now Maya, in turn, is passing on what she's learned to others trapped in the same cycle. The unstoppable effect of that simple act, one woman who was helped becomes someone who helps others, forms the bedrock of lasting community transformation. In a world that often prioritizes self-interest, this sense of shared struggle and mutual uplift stands as one of the most revolutionary acts possible. At its core, the story of Maya and Jasmine confronts us with the possibility of redemption in a society that often only pays lip service to second chances. Both women's choices challenged an indifferent public arena, proving that it takes courage not only to ask for help, but also to give it without conditions. Maya's determination to maintain her child's well-being amid overwhelming odds reveals a universal truth about motherhood. It transcends survival. It seeks to flourish even in the harshest deserts. Meanwhile, Jasmine's refusal to watch from the sidelines demonstrates the power an individual wields when they transform privilege and skill into a shield for those who cannot defend themselves alone. This interplay between the personal and the systemic is a crucial lesson. We cannot wait for the system to magically evolve into something just and humane. It evolves through the moral outrage and actions of people who demand better. And when those people unite, mothers, lawyers, neighbors, donors, institutions that once seemed unyielding begin to crumble from within. Lastly, there is a profound message about the ripple effect of hope sown throughout every chapter of Maya's journey. In the beginning, her hope was microscopic, just enough to get her through the night, just enough to keep the baby alive. But hope, like any living thing, grows when nourished. With every step Jasmine took, every phone call, every housing arrangement, every legal letter, Maya's hope multiplied. It sprang up in the hearts of those who read about her case, who recognized their own struggles in her story, and who rallied around her. It magnified in the women at the shelter she later mentored, each one passing that spark along until a roomful of battered spirits ignited into collective resilience. The final lesson is that hope, once awakened, refuses to be contained. It spreads, fueling revolutions of kindness and defiance in a world that too often expects compliance and silent suffering. In a single parking lot, beneath the glare of a flickering streetlight, Maya and Jasmine struck a match that lit a path for countless others to follow. Thank you for watching until this moment, and for standing with us on this journey for justice. Your support means everything. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let us know what moved you most in this story. Together, our voices make a difference.